the first woman, and eternal exile. Welcome to Lilith's world, a story of mystery, defiance, and freedom that has walked through myths, shadows, and time itself. In the shadow of creation. In the beginning, there was nothing. No whisper of wind, no echo of water, only the infinite silence of a universe yet unshaped. Then from the void a voice arose, not of man, nor of bird, nor of any creature that would ever exist, but the echo of creation itself. Older than words, older than thought, it moved through the darkness, shaping possibility. Light tore through the void, and stars emerged, each a careful stitch in the fabric of the cosmos. Mountains rose from the yawning earth, rivers carved their silver threads across deserts and plains, and seas formed, singing the song of life yet to come. In the distance, the first winds stirred, carrying the faint promise of sound, smell, and motion. From this newborn earth, God molded Adam, broad-shouldered, sturdy, his eyes reflecting the faint shimmer of a yet unnamed sky. But this creation was not to be solitary. The hands of the divine returned to the soil, and from the same clay, the same breath, a woman emerged. Her hair was as dark as fertile soil. Her eyes caught the shimmer of distant constellations that civilizations would one day worship: Orion, Pleiades, and the wandering Venus. Her name was Lilith. Adam and Lilith awoke side by side in the lush gardens of Eden, a paradise of flowing waters and trees heavy with fruit. The air smelled of jasmine and cedar, of rain yet to fall, and of soil pressed into the memory of the world. Every leaf, every stone, every feathered creature bore witness to their first steps. They explored the garden together. Adam spoke of the birds in the sky, pondering names that would echo in Babylonian clay tablets centuries later. Lilith traced the roots hidden beneath the soil, discovering the patterns that Sumerian farmers would one day follow, sensing the pulse of life itself. Adam turned toward the sun's warmth, while Lilith lingered in the silvered moonlight, listening to its quiet song, a song that would inspire poets in Greece and storytellers in medieval Europe. The differences between them were subtle but profound, like two rivers that begin from the same spring, yet diverge as they flow. One day, Adam spoke of order, of dominion, of the roles they were given. Lilith listened, yet her gaze stretched beyond the trees toward the horizon, where the sky met the unknown. Nights in Eden were a tapestry of peace and unspoken tension. Moonlight danced upon leaves, water mirrored the stars, and the creatures of the night observed silently. One evening, Lilith walked along a river bank, her hands brushing the cool water. She felt the first stirrings of a question that would echo through millennia. We share the same earth, the same breath. Why are our paths not equal? The wind carried the scent of distant lands yet to be explored, lands that would one day be known as Mesopotamia, Egypt, and the lands beyond the Nile. The stars reflected the stories humans would tell, some of gods and demons, others of spirits and shadows. Lilith felt a pull toward the unknown, a restless curiosity that would mark her as different, as timeless, as eternal. She returned to Adam, and the seeds of discord were planted. What began as curiosity would grow into defiance. The garden remained untouched, yet a shadow stretched across it. One born not of soil or stone, but of a question older than creation itself. Days in Eden unfolded like the slow turning of an ancient scroll. Rivers glittered under the sun, trees bent heavy with fruits yet to be named in languages yet to exist, and flowers swayed as if aware of the first humans walking among them. Yet even in this paradise, Lilith felt a stirring, a subtle friction between the order Adam cherished and the freedom she craved. Adam spoke often of dominion, He named the animals, assigning roles and hierarchies as Sumerian priests would one day etch into clay. "This is your place, and this is mine," he said, and his tone carried the weight of certainty, as if the world itself had decreed it. Lilith observed differently. She traced patterns in the roots beneath her feet, imagining the paths of civilizations yet to rise: Babylonian ziggurats, Egyptian temples, Greek sanctuaries. She questioned the authority Adam claimed, sensing that order imposed without choice was a chain. One afternoon, beneath a fig tree whose shadow stretched like a warning, Adam spoke sharply. "You are to remain beside me. This is how it was meant to be." Lilith lifted her gaze from the roots, where tiny creatures scuttled and the soil pulsed with hidden life. "By whose decree?" she asked, her voice calm but unwavering. "The one who shaped us," Adam replied. "It is clear who commands and who follows." Her eyes darkened with quiet resolve. "We are made of the same earth, given the same breath. Why should one lead while the other obeys?" Adam's face showed confusion, a ripple of doubt that he could not fully recognize. "It is the order of things," he said, unaware that the very question she posed had the power to reshape worlds. Lilith felt a surge of understanding. The garden, perfect and abundant, could not satisfy a soul that hungered for choice. The harmony Adam cherished was an illusion. The balance of Eden demanded acquiescence, not equality, and she would not acquiesce. As days passed, their quarrel sharpened. They spoke of tasks, of sleep, of boundaries, each argument revealing not weakness but divergence. Lilith's defiance was subtle yet absolute, a quiet refusal to bend, an early echo of the legends that would follow her through Mesopotamian myths, Greek, Lamius, and European tales of night spirits. One night beneath the silvered moonlight, Lilith wandered to the river's edge. The stars mirrored the constellations humans would name Orion and the Seven Sisters. She felt the first tug of destiny, the choice to remain or to walk into the unknown. The garden was paradise, yet the outside world called with a whisper older than time itself, promising freedom at the cost of exile. When Lilith returned to Adam, her resolve deepened. The seed of conflict had taken root. It was not born of malice, but of understanding that true equality could not exist within walls built of obedience. The tension between them stretched like a shadow across Eden, quiet but inevitable, preparing the stage for a choice that would echo across centuries and cultures. The day of departure was neither storm nor calm. It was something in between, a stillness so complete it seemed as if the very air was holding its breath. The garden lay around Lilith in perfect beauty, rivers like molten glass, the scent of pomegranate heavy in the air, and the trees whispering as if they knew what was to come. Adam stood by the fig tree, his eyes fixed on her with a mixture of confusion and sorrow. "If you leave," he said, "you walk away from life as it was meant to be." Lilith's gaze was steady, her voice like water over stone. "Life as you believe it was meant to be is not the same as life as I choose it to be." The Creator's presence was felt but unseen, a vast, invisible weight that pressed against her skin as if urging her to reconsider. In the stories that would echo through Jewish mysticism, this moment would become the first act of true defiance, a refusal that would echo in the tales of the Talmud, where Lilith was said to utter the ineffable name of God to gain her freedom. She turned from Adam and began to walk. With each step, the light of Eden dimmed behind her, replaced by the raw, untamed expanse of the world beyond. No rivers lined with gold, no eternal spring, only the wild earth, as ancient and unshaped as the myths that would one day surround her. Night fell quickly outside the garden. The moon rose full, casting long shadows over the desert sands. Lilith knelt and pressed her hands into the soil, feeling its grit and promise. She thought of the women yet to be born, queens of Sumer, priestesses of Babylon, warrior maidens of Scythia, and felt kinship with them all, though they existed only in the unborn future. But exile was no gentle thing. The first winds cut like knives, and the darkness carried sounds she did not yet know how to name. Predators watched from the edges of the firelight she built. Hunger gnawed. Loneliness pressed against her as fiercely as Adam's words once had. Yet with each challenge came a new strength. She learned to read the language of the wind, to hunt and to heal, to sleep beneath constellations whose stories were not yet written. Her body hardened, but her spirit remained unbroken. In distant lands, she would one day be called by many names. Ardot Lily in Mesopotamian incantations, Lamia in Greek nightmares, La Belle Dame in medieval whispers. But here, in the quiet after her leaving, she was simply Lilith, first woman, first exile, and the first to claim that freedom was worth any cost. The desert was vast and unyielding, stretching beyond the horizon like the blank pages of time itself. Lilith walked alone beneath a sky heavy with stars, each one a story yet to be told. Orion, the seven sisters, the wandering Venus, all watching silently, witnesses to her exile. The wind carried the faint scent of distant lands, cedar from the north, myrrh from the east, smoke from fires of unknown tribes. At first there was only emptiness. Days melted into nights, nights into days. The sun scorched her skin, the sands blistered her feet, and the creatures of the desert studied her in cautious silence. Yet something ancient stirred within her, a force older than the garden, older than Adam, older than obedience itself. On the seventh night she paused in the hollow of a dune. The wind shifted and a low hum rose from the earth. Not a sound of this world, but of one older and darker, of whispers carried across civilizations yet to be built. Shadows coalesced before her, tall, flickering, almost like smoke given shade. "You have left the garden," a voice said, though no lips moved. "You enter the domain of those unbound by light." "I have left," Lilith replied. Her voice was steady, a river of determination flowing through the night. "Here you may walk freely, but there is a price," the shadow said. Figures formed behind it, eyes burning like embers, shapes bending like night itself. These were the spirits that civilizations would later fear and revere. Mesopotamian demons, Greek Lamia, medieval succubi, all echoes of what she was becoming. Lilith stepped forward. "Then I accept the price." A ritual of wind and shadow enveloped her. Sand rose in spirals, ancient and sharp, singing with voices of old gods. She felt her body change, senses sharpened, her mind expanded, her connection to the hidden forces of the world deepened. In that moment, Lilith became more than human. She became a bridge between worlds, a figure whose shadow would follow humanity through millennia. When the wind finally stilled, she stood alone. The desert no longer felt empty, it bent to her presence. The stars above seemed to shine in recognition, their constellations telling stories of the first woman who dared to leave paradise. Lilith had been remade, not merely in body or spirit, but in legend. And across the distant future, in cultures from Babylon to Greece to medieval Europe, the echoes of her power would ripple, whispered in fear and awe alike. Lilith moved through the lands beyond Eden, a shadow among shadows. Villages dotted the landscape, but the people were unaware of her presence, at least at first. Yet soon, subtle signs betrayed her: a cold gust in the night, the sudden stillness of animals, whispers carried on the wind. Stories began to grow. In Mesopotamia, mothers murmured Ardat Lili to warn their children. Midwives invoked her name in secret, asking for protection against miscarriage and the spirits of the night. Babylonian scribes etched her in clay tablets, describing a woman with wings, talons, and eyes that mirrored the heavens, both feared and revered. In Greece, her presence shifted into new forms. Lamia became a figure whispered in the dark, a woman scorned by the gods, wandering the night, bringing both fear and hidden wisdom. Sailors feared the shores she haunted. Poets immortalized her as a symbol of desire, danger, and independence. In Europe, centuries later, her legend transformed again. Monks painted her as a succubus, a temptress of men's dreams, yet secret circles of women, healers, and midwives recognized her as a guardian of their knowledge and freedom. Lilith had become both myth and mirror, a being whose story adapted to the fears and needs of each culture. She observed from the shadows, careful in her interventions. Only those whose hearts sought to dominate or harm were affected directly by her influence. In subtle ways, she taught, punished, or guided. Her actions inspired awe and terror in equal measure. The deserts, forests, rivers, and mountains all became part of her domain. Even in far-flung lands she never walked, her name and legend traveled on the wind. The echoes of Lilith, fearsome, free, eternal, reached the ears of kings, shamans, and common folk alike. By the time humanity began building the first cities, Lilith had already walked their myths, shaping fear, wisdom, and freedom. She had become a legend not merely told, but lived, a shadow that could not be bound, a story that would persist as long as humans dared to question authority. Her exile had transformed her from the first woman of Eden into a timeless force, feared, revered, and eternally free. Centuries folded into millennia, and the world Lilith once knew became unrecognizable. The green heart of Eden had long since faded into memory, replaced by kingdoms and empires, by cities that rose and fell like the tides. Yet Lilith endured, moving like a shadow through the ages, unseen but never absent. She watched from the edges of history as Babylon's ziggurats pierced the heavens, as Egyptian temples aligned with the stars, as Greek philosophers questioned the nature of gods. She had no allegiance to any throne or creed. She served only her own truth, the same truth that had driven her from Eden. In medieval Europe, she drifted between villages and forests, a figure glimpsed in moonlight. To the fearful, she was a witch consorting with demons. To the oppressed, she was a whispered ally. In the Black Forest, women passed secret herbal knowledge said to be given by the Lady of the Night. In Iberia, sailors returning from far voyages spoke of a spectral woman walking the shoreline, her eyes reflecting the stars as if she carried the night itself within her. The swan said, "Well, so have we. It is one of the principal things that makes our city the way it is." Across the Middle East, her ancient name still carried weight. In small desert towns, mothers tied amulets engraved with the names of angels around their newborns, believing it would ward off Lilith. In Persia, poets reimagined her not as a destroyer, but as a wandering spirit, longing for a love denied by the heavens themselves. The industrial age brought new challenges. Factories belched smoke into the sky, drowning the stars she once navigated by. Yet the hum of machines did not drive her away. Instead, she adapted. She lingered in the narrow alleyways of London, where gas lamps flickered in the fog. She appeared in the dreams of factory girls, urging them to fight for fair wages, whispering that they were worth more than the men who sought to own them. In every era she changed form, sometimes a fleeting shadow in a candle's flame, sometimes a woman walking alone down an empty road, sometimes a dream that left a man questioning his power in the morning light. But always she carried the same defiance, the same fire that once made her reject the garden. And yet, through the endless centuries, one truth remained. Lilith was not merely surviving, she was shaping the undercurrent of human history. She was the unrecorded footnote in revolutions, the spark in the eyes of those who refused to kneel. Humanity believed her to be myth, but Lilith knew the truth. She had never left. The cities rose like steel forests, towering over streets filled with buzzing lights and relentless motion. Cars hummed, neon flickered, and the night was no longer silent. Yet Lilith moved through it all, unseen. A shadow, threading between glass and concrete, slipping past cameras, past the gaze of the busy and distracted masses. She had walked through centuries, witnessed empires crumble and nations rise, yet her essence remained untouched by time. Her hair, dark as fertile soil, framed a face that could vanish into any crowd, her eyes reflecting the distant stars humans no longer saw. The moonlight traced her path as it had for millennia, an eternal witness to her passage. People still whispered her name, though few remembered why. Mothers cautioned their children, lovers shivered in anticipation of shadows, and those attuned to the old ways, the mystics, the midwives, the astrologers, recognized her as a presence of power and freedom. Lilith could appear in a dream, a sudden reflection in a window, or a fleeting figure passing a lonely street. Some would awaken with fear, others with clarity. In the modern age, her influence was subtler, but no less profound. She shaped thoughts, nudged decisions, and intervened where the powerful sought to dominate the weak. Corporations, governments, and individuals alike were not beyond her reach, not by brute force, but through the quiet manipulation of circumstance, intuition, and fear. Technology and science had changed the world, but not the fundamental truths Lilith represented. The desire for control, the temptation of obedience, the thirst for freedom, they persisted. And wherever such impulses met, Lilith was present, unseen yet undeniable. She became a myth in new forms, a figure in urban legends, a shadow in modern dreams, a story that mothers, still, whispered in half-forgotten ways. The world might have forgotten the stars, but it had not forgotten the night, and as long as night existed, so too did Lilith. And yet she felt a pull she had not known before. Humanity was reaching for power at scales she had never encountered. Machines that thought, cities that never slept, networks connecting every corner of the globe. The night itself had changed, and Lilith knew that if she were to continue guiding and guarding, she too must evolve, adapting once more to a world faster, brighter, and infinitely more complex than Eden ever was. She moved through the streets like a living shadow, silent and eternal, her presence a reminder of the unseen, a warning, a promise. Freedom cannot be contained, not by walls, not by law, not by the passage of time. Lilith had survived millennia, she had endured empires, and she would endure the modern age. The night stretched endless above the city, a tapestry of shadow and light. Lilith stood upon a rooftop, her dark hair catching the glow of neon signs below, the hum of cars and machines rising like a modern chorus. Yet even amidst the artificial brightness, the stars still watched, though faintly, as they had for millennia. Orion, Pleiades, Venus, all bearing witness to her existence. The world had changed beyond recognition. Forests had become streets. Rivers ran beneath concrete. Civilizations rose and fell like tides. Yet she remained, a presence older than any monument, older than any religion, older than any empire. Her name endured, whispered in myths, etched in clay tablets, sung in medieval poems, carried through the dreamscape of humanity. To the fearful, she remained a shadow at the edge of consciousness, a cautionary tale in whispered warnings. To the wise and daring, she was a symbol: freedom, defiance, the refusal to be bound by fate or fear. Lilith was both lesson and mystery, an echo of rebellion across time. She had walked the deserts of Mesopotamia, the temples of Greece, the forests of Europe, and the bustling cities of the modern world. Each era shaped her legend, each culture added its story to her name, but none could confine her. She was beyond their myths, beyond their gods, beyond their laws. Lilith smiled faintly as she looked down at the streets below. Somewhere in the endless city, a young woman would whisper her name before a difficult choice. A young man would sense a presence guiding him through temptation. A child would dream of a woman in shadow who represented courage beyond the known. These were the small threads she wove into the fabric of human lives, subtle yet enduring. The moon rose higher, casting silver across rooftops and streets. Lilith stepped forward, the wind brushing past her like invisible hands. The night bent around her, as it always had. She had survived exile, centuries, civilizations, and progress itself. She would survive as long as the night endured. And in the quiet hearts of humanity, the story stirred once more. Mothers whispered, lovers feared, dreamers imagined. Lilith's name was alive, eternal, unbound. The first woman and eternal exile that could welcome to Lilith's world. She had endured, story of mystery, she had survived, defiance, she would endure freedom again. That has walked through myths, the night belonged to her, and time and in the itself. Night she was free.